Welcome to the Wedco podcast, where wedding wisdom meets street smarts.
We're dishing out all the tips, tricks, and wedding goss to take your wedding to the next level.
Time to ditch the formalities and get this party started. All right, welcome to the Wedco podcast. I'm Togger.
I'm Joel.
And today we have Mim from Aurora Floral Studio in the podcast arena with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries.
Pleasure.
Well, do you want to start? Do you want to say like a little bit about who you are, how long you've been in business, and what brought you down this realm?
Yeah, I'm Mim. From Aurora Floral Studio. I've been running my business now for like 8-ish years. Which feels like way too long to do one thing. It's just kind of something that like I randomly got into. My husband and I had a little coffee shop and we had like a little communal table. I was like, I'm going to do the flowers for that every week. And then suddenly I just thought I was like a professional wedding florist and started doing that and loved weddings. And yeah, here I am now. So mostly doing weddings, a couple of events as well. In Brisbane based, but travelling all over really from Sunshine Coast to Byron Bay and
everywhere in between.
Wherever it takes you.
Yeah. And so I saw you on the weekend up here. Do you have a team that works with you or is it, you do? Yeah.
Mostly me. I have freelancers who work for me, which is just like an awesome setup to, have people I can lean on when I really need them and then just be solo when I need to be.
Yeah.
So
it's also good to have a team around you as well when you're like, just bouncing creative ideas. You're like, what about this? I feel like when I'm on my own, I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And then when I'm shooting with Steve or someone else, I'm like, what do you think about this? What do you think about? I'm like, not second guessing myself, but just like coming up with like unique scenarios.
Bounce ideas off.
Yeah.
And just so you're not bored, like, and lonely.
Yeah, exactly.
When I'm working with like a few of my girls, I just don't shut up. I'm like, I never get to talk to anyone.
Adult interaction.
So it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then you're saying, so it's a little bit of like corporate, commercial and weddings.
Yeah.
Like percentage wise, is it majority weddings now?
Yeah, definitely majority weddings.
Yep.
I just love that. I think I love the personal relationships that you have with couples and just that you get so much creative freedom, sometimes. And yeah, it's just like so nice being a part of people's special day and bringing that to life for them. So I feel like a little bit of a magical flower fairy sometimes, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like talk to us a bit about like the process. So like someone will find you and be like, want you to be a part of our wedding.
Yeah.
Like what's that process after they book you? Like how much like add-on do they have to their style? Like are they sending you Pinterest boards?
Yeah.
Like talk to us a little bit.
Some people are so different. Like some people, I get a lot of work from Instagram. I guess that's just like such a good creative portfolio that people can see your work from. And some people will say, oh my gosh, I love everything you do. Like this is what I need, but have total creative freedom.
That's
and
the
other
best
people,
ego stroke, right?
So good. I'm like, oh my God, tell me more.
Yeah, don't stop.
And then other people are like, this is exactly what I want. These are the flowers. It's different for everyone. But that process is basically just people coming to you through your website and telling you a bit about what their vision is and what they want and need. And if you've got that creative freedom, putting like a really beautiful brief together and guiding them through the process of what different options they have and, the price breakdown of different options. Sometimes that can be a really brief conversation and people are like, cool, yep, let's lock it in.
Yeah.
And other times you're chatting to people like every weekend for a year. So it just totally depends on
it's a tough one with like budget and stuff like that. Do you find that many of you or like what sort of ratios like the client where they're like, this is what I want and you're like, cool, that's going to be 10 grand and they're like, I had 1,000 to spend.
They're like, I'm going to ghost you. It just, I guess most people don't know what flowers are going to cost. And probably the biggest thing is the labor that goes into it. And they're like, oh, wow, why is that so expensive? And you're like, well, because I'm spending a year like making this day come to life. Some people say this is the budget I have and it's either like, well, we need to tone down your Pinterest board. Or
say the Pinterest board from Tuscany, maybe not so much.
Maybe let's do it in the backyard. And then other people are just totally shocked and it's like, all right, let's do bud vases. Let's not do giant arrangements. So you just got to work with people and say like, this is realistic. And if this is what you want, then this is what you have to expect. But if that's not something that's super important to you, then we can make these changes and just really guide them through the process. So it's always daunting when you send a quote. I'm like,
don't ghost me, don't ghost me.
It's almost like as soon as you see the Pinterest board and you're like, geez, if they like, I hope they're
so
aware
what kind of job do you have?
Like sourcing flowers, like we've spoken to a few different florists now, and usually like the bigger flower arrangements, they do go say internationally, like importing flowers just because of the safety, I guess, of that. How does that work? Does that change depending if you've got a big job versus a little job, or how does that work in regards to yourself?
I mean, it doesn't really depend on the size of the job. You just have to be upfront with people and say, like, if you want these imported blooms and this is how much they're going to cost, they're going to be more expensive. Sometimes for the little jobs, I actually source things from a wider variety of places. Like, you know, you might be driving to Byron to a local flower farm and then out to Ipswich to get something different. And it just depends on the season and what's available.
So you're driving and finding these, you're not like having them delivered to you?
Smaller flower farms might not deliver. So, you know, if you want something really special, then you got to drive for it. Other times you might be like shipping things from Melbourne and Sydney and picking them up from the airport. And so there's like, a lot of driving around and a lot of different sourcing and logistics. You can just like order the import blooms and, you know, they rock up at the flower markets and it's all easy. But at the same time, like, I like to avoid imports if I can and support local. And sometimes like the quality of them is just like, ugh. I'm like, you've been traveling around the world for like a week in a box. So, they just come from all over the place and, you just got to do what you got to do to get the good stuff.
Yeah, that's it.
And so you have a bunch of, say, like vendors now essentially that you'll go, like you go to Byron because you know you want X, Y, Z and they've got that down there and Sunny Coast has this.
Yeah, okay. And also like a lot of places at the flower markets or, you know, like places that grow all their stuff in greenhouses, everything's very perfect. And if you've got a wedding that you want it to be like really wild and whimsical and you want some like weirdo little stems, and you've got to go to the places that like do the weirdo stems.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay.
So
not so manicured.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And like we had a wedding on the weekend and it was like, I think it was like 35 degrees or something like that. It was a cooking.
Yeah.
And then it was like straight after the ceremony, like we kept the flowers in the water the whole time until the ceremony, walked down the aisle, come back down the aisle at the end. And like the flowers were just like all over the shop. Is there like...
Oh my God.
Done.
This is why every florist has like severe anxiety.
And like it got to portraits and we're like, I don't know if they want me to take photos of these or like we did it for a bit of both. But like is there ways around like trying to preserve them like in those kind of harsh environments?
I mean, to some degree, but at the end of the day, like you're taking this beautiful flower, snipping it out of the ground and being like, survive. It's 35 degrees.
Good luck.
So like, again, and I think you just have to be like upfront with people and say like, if you're getting married in November, December, like don't expect to wake up and collect all your flowers the next day and they're like gorgeous and beautiful, because they just are not going to be. So there's like things you can do. I deliver all my bouquets in water and say keep them in the aircon or in the shade until you're ready to go. Or if you're taking photos, take them out and then pop them back in. But yeah, there's only so much you can do. I would just probably suggest getting married in winter.
Just don't do December.
Just don't do it.
Would there be a discussion where, okay, you are getting married in December, is there certain blooms that are going to hold up to the heat better than others that you end up recommending?
Yeah, definitely. And there's things like, it's just managing so many different things. Like if you're getting married outside on a 35-degree day, then your expectations have to be that your flowers are like going to be prime at your ceremony, and then it's all downhill from there.
Yeah, for sure. Same as your makeup.
Yeah. So.
And if you want to get married outside, that's just the reality of it. If your flowers are your priority and you're like, I want these to be perfect all day, then you have to get married inside. Like just what are the like priorities to you, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Is there some like hardier flowers that are like better in like harsher environments like summer and stuff like that? Is there
for
some
sure.
hardier ones?
I mean, like natives are always, I did a native wedding here the other week and I left knowing like, okay, these aren't going to die before
They'll be fine.
the like couple walks down the aisle, which is fantastic.
It's always a positive.
Yeah. But again, if that's not what you're looking for, then
Yeah, if you
it's
got a
not what you're
particular
looking
style,
for.
you're just like, I want roses or whatever it is, or tulips or
Yeah.
Is the natives, are they still on trend at the moment? Like, are we shifting
That was actually
away?
the first native wedding I've done all year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I feel like a couple of years it was like pretty much natives
Yeah.
for all the bouquets and
Yeah.
everything.
And I think, it'll always be on trend. It just depends what you attract. It's not like something that I work with a lot anymore, but there definitely are people who work with a lot of natives. So, yeah.
Is there a particular style that you do that you would call Aurora?
I'd say very like gardeny, whimsical. But at the same time, you just, with Pinterest and stuff, you get so excited about different styles. So while I have something that I naturally gravitate towards, I love if someone would come and be like, do you want to do this super cool, weird thing? I'd be like, yes, let's do it.
Viking wedding, let's go.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Which I guess does bring us to, like, say, styled shoots. When we do styled shoots, it's very easy because there isn't an cost, like a upfront cost for us. We just get there, we shoot, it's our time, and that's about it. Do you see the value in styled shoots still now? Or you do?
I think so. I've done one, I only did one this year. And I kind of weigh up the cost between like doing a styled shoot and maybe like investing that money in an online directory or something. And the styled shoot is like you get to get all of the creative juice out of your brain and do something you really love. If someone came to me and said, do you want to do this shoot? This is the color palette we're looking for. This is what we want you to do. I'm probably not going to do it if it's not like my dream vision. But if I get to create something really amazing and unique and I can use that through social media posts and like submit it to an online directory and just keep using that content, then I would say that's like totally a good investment. And just working with other creatives and, you know, building relationships and stuff is super valuable.
Yeah.
But for a florist, it's not cheap.
No,
like
definitely.
my shoot that I did, I spent probably $2,000 on flowers.
Yeah, wow.
And then by the end of the day, you're so exhausted that you're like, oh, just everyone take it.
take them home. Take the flowers. Enjoy the flowers.
So it's a lot, but it's just nice to do that sometimes. You know, if you can spend, you don't have to spend that much money. I have absolutely no self-control. So that's why I did. But yeah, it's just nice to do something that you want to get out of your brain and that you've been envisioning for a long time. So
And in the
always
past,
fun.
in the past, have you found that has led to further work, like brides and grooms, and everyone have seen that work, and then you'll start booking that type of work?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
I think that was my headspace probably at the start of the year when I did that photo shoot. I was doing a lot of a particular style wedding and I was like, I'm kind of getting sick of this, but like every wedding I do, I'm getting these photos for this style. And so if I want to put out the work that I want to be attracting, then I just have to, you know, show what I can do and show what I love to do.
Just the price of doing business, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now like I get so many people send me the inspo photos from that shoot.
That's it.
Amazing.
And they're like, I love this and this is what
That's
I
so
want to
good.
do. I'm like, yes.
Another ego stroke. You're like, let's go.
So yeah, I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you said before that like you wouldn't really hit up someone. You wouldn't really do a styled shoot where someone's hitting you up being like, this is what I'm thinking, blah, blah, blah. So are you planning the shoots that you're kind
I
of...
planned that one.
Yeah,
and
okay.
if someone came to me and had like this epic vision and I was like, oh, that's right up my alley
yep.
and they're vendors that I'd love to work with, then it's definitely something I consider. But a lot of the time, if you don't get that creative freedom or it's not quite your vibe, then I wouldn't do it. But it's a lot of work to organize a shoot too.
Totally.
So
Definitely.
you got to have the brain space for it.
Yeah. There's a lot of moving factors. Like I'm kind of at the point where now I'm like, I'm not trying to make a styled shoot look like a wedding because it is
Yeah.
just something different.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm just like, how many times can I post a photo of just like a model, like a bride model just on my Instagram and it almost looks, I'm like in my own head, I'm like, but am I just like cutting out the groom from these photos? So then when
Yeah.
they're looking at my work, they're like, why does this guy only post pictures of women, you know?
It's like when I post bouquet photos without the bride's face,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, is this so rude? But like,
Coming back
I need to
that.
see the
We were
flowers.
talking about the other day, like
Yeah.
hair and makeup, when they're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this is her before and then after.
Look at how good she looks.
That's horrible. I would hate people to
no,
do that
I'm
to
like,
me.
just the after photo, like no befores needed, thank you.
I find it so bizarre. I'm like, how do they get away with that? I'd be so
Yeah.
livid. Here's what happens when I've got 2 hours of work with you
This is what she used to look like.
and $300 worth of.
This is your improved version.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And then obviously we've seen your work in like Hello May and Together Journal and everything
Yeah.
like that. You seem to be very good at forging relationships with those types of people. How did you find you were able to break into that market? Like, are you just reaching out to editors of these magazines?
Mostly I'd say photographers
Yep.
do that job. So a couple of times I've had real weddings that are featured in these magazines, and it's couples who are like, you know, I want my special day in this magazine because it's so beautiful. So they'll ask the photographer, or the photographer will say, can I submit this to a magazine? These photos are beautiful. And then your work kind of just naturally gets featured. With a styled shoot, you definitely go in with the intention of getting that shoot featured. So that's kind of another perk of a styled shoot. So yeah, I've just been lucky to work with amazing photographers and I guess amazing couples who have such beautiful days that people want to put them in their magazines. I'm not particularly good at reaching out to people. It's probably something I should do more. But yeah, definitely photographers are
Okay.
the ones pushing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then once you've been in those magazines once, like they kind of see who you are and you get a reputation and you're going to
Yeah.
get featured more.
Yeah.
And work, especially like working with those photographers, with the planners and the right venues, you are going to get featured more often as well.
Yeah. I've been in one directory that I've been contacted and they've said, oh, we love your work and
Yep.
we featured you a bunch of times. Do you want to be part of our online directory, which is obviously a paid thing?
Yeah.
And I've only done that once, and it just has to be someone that like I really align my work
Yeah.
with and the types of weddings that they feature, and a bit of trial and error, I guess, seeing
Yes, it is.
of people saying that they're finding me in these online directories,
Yeah.
and at the end of the year going, is that worth it? Is that something I'm
Exactly.
going to do again? So
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a
always a
tough
bit of a
one. Like
gamble.
I'm kind of mixed feelings about that, all like that sort of stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like you said, it's
you just don't know.
sometimes it's like just the cost of business. One year it's like, cool, that booked me a bunch of weddings. The next year, you're like, I got 2 inquiries from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, is $1,000 better for Instagram ads, or is it
Yeah.
better for
Yeah.
to go in
Yeah.
a directory? It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you found much come from like directories or magazines or
A little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah,
like
okay.
on my website, when people inquire, I say, where did you find me? And
Yep.
honestly, most of it's Instagram.
Yeah.
So, or vendor referrals or
Yeah, cool.
family, friends, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So, but I think that's the important thing. If you're going to go and pay to be in a directory, you need to ask people, where did you find me? Because
Yeah, exactly.
otherwise
Definitely.
you're not going to know if it's paid off or not.
yeah.
And it's a lot, like if you,
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
feature in a couple. So
Yeah. Especially the ones that you probably will get stuff from. They're typically the you know, the classier ones, the better ones. That,
Yeah.
And so it's like that just comes with more cost.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, is like I better get something from this.
I don't know, is a small business all about just like spending money and not making money?
Yeah, right.
Breaking even.
It's a tax write-off. I don't know what that means, but
Yeah.
the tax man doesn't get
man,
money.
I remember those days.
Yeah. How would you, if you were to restart your business today, how would you go about it?
Tough
I
one.
don't know. That's so hard. Like the landscape for starting a business these days is so different.
Yep.
Like it just seems really easy to younger people who are like smashing social media.
Totally,
yeah.
And like
Dancing
we
on
were talking about
TikTok.
before, just like
Yeah.
their face in the camera all the time.
Yeah,
That
for sure.
terrifies me. So how would I start it differently?
Because like, I
would-
feel like there's so many, like I've seen in the wedding industry where they're like, one person's like 100% you've got to put your face to the brand.
Yeah.
And then the next one you're like, they barely post anything and that makes them then look busier. And so it's like they don't have time. And it's like, what works?
Such a mind game. I know. I think the biggest thing that I learned was networking. When I started my business, I had this little coffee shop and you're always like, you know, in a small coffee shop like that, you're always talking to people and networking. And I'd had friends who owned like retail stores and other cafes and they were like, let's do this collaboration and like put your flowers here and I know this person.
Yep.
And the more that I've gotten into business and the busier I've been, I've almost like not had time to network. And then
for sure.
I've seen a big difference in how easy it is for people to just come to you. So I think it's so important to just keep up those relationships with other vendors, and that could be through social media or going to events or anything. But just put yourself out there, really, which is terrifying, but you just gotta.
So buy a cafe. That's what you said.
Buy a cafe,
and everyone will come to you. That's what we have to do. Okay, perfect.
Buy a
it's a bit of
cafe.
a two-part business plan. But worked for me.
That's so good.
Oh, beautiful.
Are you just like mad coffeeholic or?
I used to be.
Used to be?
Yeah, such a snob. And now I'm just like, inject any caffeine into my veins, honestly.
Be all of it.
And then how is next year and everything looking for you? I know like we've spoken to a few people, even venues who are saying they're pretty quiet for the end of next year. How are you feeling business-wise for next year at the moment?
Next year's looking weird.
Yeah.
I think obviously like the state of the world, everyone's
Yes, definitely.
struggling a lot more financially. And previously, you know, I'd be booking weddings a year and a half in advance. And now people are like, oh, we're getting married in 3 months.
3
like,
months.
let's start
Yeah.
talking flowers. I'm
Yeah.
like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly. The inquiries for like Feb, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Yeah,
okay.
it's insane.
I guess
Like, I'm
securing that
available.
work.
I've got so much time. I'm available, but it's bizarre.
Yeah, it's really weird. So it just, I feel like it all changed so suddenly and everything's very last minute. Budgets are a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Which kind of puts you into that like panic of like, oh, I don't know what next year looks like, but I think it'll just be a different pace. It'll be very fast paced and kind of scrambling at the last minute.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, I'm having a baby in January, so my year's looking a little bit
Chaotic.
weird.
Yeah.
All the coffee.
So yeah, so much coffee. So it's gonna be a slow start to the year for me, and then it kind of picks up again, you know, like April-ish.
Yeah, okay.
And a nice steady flow, but just it feels different for sure.
And were you able to plan that out enough, you know, with Bub coming, like you could not take weddings on around that time? Or have you got the Give it all. I'll figure it out.
I'm like, who knows what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Let's just wing it.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of time off, but like small jobs here and there. But I guess having freelancers and a team of people I can rely on, I can outsource as much as possible.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just kind of like a roll with it kind of person. We'll make it work.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and like you said, next year definitely feels that way.
Yeah.
For sure. It's like the commercial gigs we do, and they're it's like, oh, in 2 weeks we got to shoot this, and it feels very much like just pull it together and see what happens.
You just make it work. You just don't sleep and it's fine.
Yeah.
Sleep's overrated. You're not going to sleep anyway.
Who needs it?
It's like it's wedding season. You're like this, but it's been like that all year.
Like we live in Queensland.
I feel fatigued. Yeah.
For sure.
Do you have like a minimum spend for your clients and stuff?
Yeah, I've got a $3,500 minimum spend. Every year I'm like, oh, I need to bump that up. It's hard to explain like minimum spends to people and why you have them and what they mean, but there's just, I guess, so much labor that goes into weddings. And
like you said, you got to drive around from this place to this place and pick up flowers.
And as like the sole person of my business, there's only so many places I can be at once. So, you know, if I'm only doing 1-2 weddings a weekend, then it has to be a viable amount for me to run a business.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of, my minimum spend that allows me to be creating the kind of weddings that I want to create, to be able to use the kind of flowers that I want to use and attract the kind of clients that I want to work with. So every year that feels tighter and tighter because flowers are expensive. Like wholesale flowers are expensive, labor's expensive. But at the same time, I really like doing like little weddings and micro weddings. So it's just communicating with people about what that expectation is. Sometimes the Pinterest boards I get, they're like, oh, yep, my budget's your minimum spend 3.5. And I'm like, cool, babe, but that's like a 20 grand wedding.
That's a different thing. Exactly. That's Yarra Valley. We're doing everything.
And then like, are you like, how do you coach them back from that? Like if you're like, I'm at 20 grand, if they're like, I'm at 20 grand and then you're like, your budget's only at, 3.5.
Yeah.
Like how do you coach them back from that? Are you more like kind of looking through and being like, cool, well, you got 6 bridesmaids and you're all wanting and like expensive flowers and stuff in those? Or is it more you just like, maybe we can like dial it back on the ceremony, get rid of the hanging installations and that sort of thing?
I've tried a few different approaches. Sometimes you just send them the big quote and you're like, talk to you never. And then sometimes they come back and they're like, look, I love the concept and I love the vision. It's a little bit over budget, but like, let's try and meet in the middle somewhere. And a lot of the time that doesn't work. So it's just about like making sure that they really trust you and they understand that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, I will always say invest your money in your ceremony flowers because that's where all of your beautiful photos are. So many times you get photos back and there's like 1 or 2 photos of the reception and it's like dark and mum's like drunk in the corner or something.
Jackets all over the seats.
Yeah. So I'm like, maybe let's scale back here if this is really your budget.
Yeah, for sure.
And just say like, this is the best way that we can utilize your budget. And if that's still over, maybe we can make some compromises here and there. And maybe your bridesmaids can carry like a couple of beautiful stems with flowing ribbons. Like you've got 6 bridesmaids. We don't need to go overboard with flowers. Let's make you like, the main show. So just coaching them through it, making sure that they trust you and that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
And finding a way to make everyone happy, I guess.
Yeah. That $3,500, what does that, I know this is a super broad question, but like what does that cover? Like as in what can someone expect for that $3,500 just as a rough gauge?
Yeah. So probably bridal bouquet, maybe 2 or 3 bridesmaids bouquet, ceremony installation. That varies so much though, depending how juicy you want it to be.
Yeah.
And then a very minimal reception. And it depends on your number of guests. Like if you've got 300 guests and you want arrangements for like 25 tables, then
the $3,500 a table.
You got one of those flowers from after the ceremony on the 35-degree day. Take that one.
So I would say a $3,500 budget is probably appropriate for a small to medium sized wedding with a beautiful ceremony installation, minimal reception arrangements and a bridal party of like 4 or so.
Yep. Yeah. And you'll be repurposing like the ceremony into the reception afterwards or something like that.
I think it's always such a good way to like, make the most of your flowers. And I mean, unless it's like 35 degrees and they're all dead. I'm like, let's not put them on the bridal table. But yeah, that's another thing is like talking to them about options of how we can repurpose ceremony flowers. So if we go and make this big thing on this structure that's going to stay there and we can't move it inside or we're going to have to remove it and rearrange the entire thing, then that's going to be a waste and it's going to be more expensive. Or let's do something that we can just pick up and totally relocate without any rearranging. So.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe like a special wall inside the reception or something like that. We're going to get photos in front of this. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, we see like the ceremony installations repurposed to either like behind the bride and groom or even like in front of behind the cake to make that kind of a bit more of a grand feature. It's nice. It's really cool.
And it just feels so much less wasteful.
Yeah.
When you're spending that much money on flowers, you're like, well, I don't want to leave them outside.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a good way to do it.
And you're saying a lot of your work is referrals, like your Instagram is big as well. Do you have certain venues that you just kind of keep getting, like I find for photography especially, you'll book certain venues. If they can afford the venue, they can definitely afford you, and it just kind of works that way.
Yeah.
Is it the same with florals as well, where you find yourself at the same spot a lot of times?
Yeah, definitely. I think for people who really struggle to like envision things, when they can go to a venue's Instagram and see like, oh, someone's made this thing and it's in the style that I like, it's very easy for them to just come to you and say like, I really like what you've done. I like this type of thing. How can we tweak it a little bit and make it our own? And also people like to know that you've worked at a venue, the space, and they can trust that you know what you're doing there and make recommendations. So yeah, definitely have a handful of venues that I work at pretty regularly. It's always so nice like finding new venues as well.
Definitely.
Traveling around and
it's a funny one. I was talking to a bride recently about that where I was like, where she was saying, oh, it's nice to get like people in here that have not really shot at this venue and stuff before because then they kind of bring in a fresh perspective and stuff. And I'm like, 100%. Like I agree because I'm the same. When I go to a new venue, I'm like, that's a sick venue. I'm going to put all my effort into that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'm just like, but I've also shot at this venue like 20 times before. I know where it's good. I know the light's going to hit that behind that tree at this time. I know we're not going to get sunset because there's a bunch of trees around or that sort of thing. So it's interesting how you can be working somewhere for so long. You can be working at a place a lot, and that's a good thing and that's an advantage. But then also sometimes it's like when you haven't worked there before, you like go above and beyond.
Totally. Like a lot of people send me photos from particular venues and they're like, I love this and I want to do this, and they basically just want to replicate it.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, that seems insane. Like, don't you want to do something different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, if you're not someone who can visualize something that doesn't exist, then if you know what you like, you know what you like.
Do you get that a lot where people kind of just like, I want this?
Yeah, a bit. Not quite half, but definitely like a fair chunk of people do that.
And then from there, then you guys just kind of come in and are like, what if we did this?
And I mean, sometimes it's great to just have a wedding where you can be like, cool, I know exactly what I'm doing.
True.
I've done this before.
Yep.
And I think there's a time and a place for that. But sometimes you know a wedding venue and you're like, oh, this has so much more potential, or let's do something really interesting, or I know your photos would look insane if we did this.
Yeah.
So it's just about finding that balance of people who are like, no, this is exactly what I want, and other people who you feel like you can push a little bit creatively. So
Yeah.
I feel like shooting a new venue as well. It almost feels like traveling to me. Like you go there and it's like somewhere you haven't seen. You're like, I need to shoot here all the time. And it's just amazing. It's like,
yeah, for sure.
but then it's almost like easier to go to a venue you shoot at all the time. Like you're saying, it's like it's the easy job versus like the inspiring one because it's something new. And the ones you shoot at all the time were new at one point and they were super inspiring as well. It's hard to balance the two.
But also I think like venues that have so many variables, like if, you know, if there's only one ceremony option and it's outside and it might rain, it might storm, it might be too hot, you need a photographer or like vendors who can just think on the fly and be like, this is what we're going to do to make the most out of this. If you've got someone scrambling and being like, oh shit, how do I make this work?
Raining.
Then not ideal. So
It's raining. You're all wet.
oh, how did that happen?
Yeah, sorry about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
And movements for your business, like you said, obviously next year we're just kind of holding on with whatever we can. Anything in the pipeline for you, any shifts or anything like that?
Yeah. Oh,
Rest. For 2
those
weeks.
days are over. My brain is like always going a million miles an hour with business ideas. But I guess like long term, maybe short term, who knows, goal is to have a little micro wedding venue.
Oh, amazing.
It's something that my husband and I have been dreaming of for years.
Yep.
And like last year we were like, oh my God, it's happening. Like next month it's going to happen. And then interest rates.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, just I think being in the industries of like servicing people and and hospitality, like I just love it. And I love like architecture and interior design and having a little flower farm and kind of doing it all. So that's the goal.
Yep.
I don't know.
Do you see that in Brisbane or surrounds or like
Surrounds?
Beautiful.
Ideally.
Yeah.
I actually applied for a place in Brisbane in the city like a few months ago because like why not try and open a wedding venue just as you're having a baby?
Yeah, of course. It's a logical thing to do.
And it wasn't the right fit. They wanted office spaces in there and blah, blah, blah. So like, yeah, I guess I'm like open to anything if it feels right and it feels like it's going to be a good fit. I don't know where that's going to lead me, but hopefully the surrounds somewhere.
Yeah,
little
cool.
nice place to raise a family and grow some flowers and
Well, it feels like the family's pretty entrepreneurial, like with the cafe and like it seems like you're always doing different things and that's exciting.
So, my husband and I we like eloped at the registry in Brisbane, which is so not our vibe, but like it was actually the best day ever. Yeah. And then we just had a really small little wedding with 40 people down by the river at this little boat shed in Brisbane. And I just love that. Like I love intimate events and where you can have lots of impact because, you know, you're not trying to pay for a wedding for hundreds of people. And I love like planning events and surprising people and just like bringing beautiful visions to life. So it's kind of like the best of all of the things I've ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
So
And just have like a home base there as well. Like,
Yeah.
we just put all the effort into this, and you can get so creative.
We live out of it too.
Yeah, got the tiny home in the back.
I'm just in the caravan out the back.
rocking the baby.
Writing back an email, rocking the baby.
It's super exciting, and I feel like that's the way the world is going. We still do shoot a lot of big weddings as well.
Yeah.
But it feels like there is more and more like 30 to 40 intimate kind of weddings.
Yeah. I mean, there's like space for everything. There's always going to be weddings of all different types and sizes. And I think, being able to hone in on something that's like such a strong vision for you is really nice. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's like a this year plan,
See? It's on the back. It's on the burner.
but it's in my mind.
Yeah,
It's
that's
in the
cool.
brain.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we're looking for flowers for our wedding. What would we look at? Like, what tips would you give to us? Where we have no idea what we're talking about with flowers.
Yeah.
I actually had one this week where she planned it 2 years ago, but she got married on the weekend, and she was just like, "You guys are the professionals. Like, do your thing."
Yeah.
That can sometimes be like overwhelming because you're
Yeah.
like,
It's
what-
like that's
what do you
so
want?
nice,
Like,
but
you
like a
still
little more
have-
information would be good.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But what should people look out for when they're hiring a florist for their big day?
Yeah, I think when you're hiring somebody, you should look for somebody whose work you absolutely love. And every time you see something, you're like, oh, that's so amazing. Like, I want something like that.
Yep.
You can go price shopping and hit up 20 different florists and go in with the cheapest one. And absolutely, like, you need to stick to your budget, but you might not be getting what you expect and what your vision is. So going with someone whose work you love, you know automatically that you're going to get something that you love.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes people come to me like before they even have a venue, which I'm like, that's crazy. But I think having like your style and something that's really natural and organic to you as a couple is so important. Like, I often ask people to send me inspo photos of their aesthetic that might have nothing to do with flowers. Like, send me a photo of a garden you like, or like the rings you're picking, or the cutlery you like. Because you kind of start to get this idea of, you know, oh, you want something that's really organic and romantic, or no,
Lots of
this is
greenery
very sleek or modern.
Yeah.
And you can put a visual mood board together based on that. Whereas someone might come and say, oh, I love these flowers. And then the whole rest of their wedding is like retro. And I've done these garden flowers. And I'm like, am I at the right
Like
wedding?
full like tea party
Yeah.
for something else.
Yeah. And I think that's just because like social media and Pinterest is so overwhelming. You're just getting bombarded by different inspo, and like you've got FOMO with, you know, other weddings that you see.
And it's all beautiful. Like, all of it looks amazing.
You're like, how am I meant to choose?
Yep.
So I often say, like, at the start, if you're booking a year in advance, let's not get too, you know,
Crazy on the
crazy
details.
on all the little details, because you'll probably come back to me in 6 months and be like, I've changed my mind.
Yeah. I've seen this at 30 weddings now.
Yeah. So that's why working with someone you trust is so important, because you know that it doesn't matter if we've locked in this vision, or not locked it in, but already discussed it. I can change my mind and they're going to understand what I want still. And we're going to be able to talk about floral selection and, you know, the aesthetic and everything. Did I answer your question?
No, that was good.
That's great.
That was perfect. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. And then is there anything else you'd like to add? Like, where can people find you? Because when they want to find the coffee shop and the micro, you know, all the wedding venues and everything like that.
Oh gosh, I've set the bar too high. Instagram is where I mostly am posting things. I'm trying to get on TikTok lately. It's a little overwhelming.
Dance with your flowers.
Oh my gosh, I see so many of those wet videos. I'm like, I just can't. I would
do
like
it.
rather crawl in a hole and die.
There's a guy that's blowing up on Instagram at the moment, probably TikTok too, he has like a vase on a
He
table.
throws it in
and,
it,
and he's like dancing behind it.
The amount of people that send that to me, I'm like, I can't.
just do it.
It's making me sweat like thinking about me doing that.
You owe the viewers that.
I mean, he does a great job, but like picturing myself doing that, no thank you. So anyway, just social media if I'm there, and then just submitting a website inquiry.
And it's Aurora Floral Studio on Instagram.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, perfect.
And then
And
same as website.
What was that?
The same as the website, Aurora Floral Studio.
.com.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I just like to keep all of my conversations in one place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Email train's massive.
Big tip.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Not DMs, no text messages.
Oh,
Yes.
so many places. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on and
Thanks
having a
for having
chat.
me.
It was awesome.
Good to be here.
And I can't wait to work with you again soon and
Yes.
see what happens in the new year.
Yeah.
Good luck
Busy
with the baby
times.
in January.
Thank
Exactly.
you. Yeah. You might see me like bopping along with a baby attached
Yeah,
to me,
yeah, just
making making an armband.
TikTok
I'll be
will go
there.
viral.
I know. It's just part of the business plan,
That's
you
it.
know.
Yeah, exactly. Blowing up.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Ian.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wedco podcast. We're dropping a fresh episode every week featuring industry professionals dishing out the wedding wisdom you need to turn those dreams into reality. Make sure you are following us on social media, you have those notifications turned on so we can help plan your wedding day. Your dream wedding day just got a whole lot easier. Thanks for listening.